Stormy towards the inside. 3/4 went in 1:10, and Halliday is still there. Halliday is in front by 2. Got Stormy is all out on the outside in second. Then it is Emmaus and Casa Creed. Got Stormy on the outside of Halliday. Halliday and Got Stormy as they come down for the finish. Halliday with a front-running score.
Welcome back to the Racing Rundown here on YouTube. I'm Eric DeCoster. In this edition, we will be previewing the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Mile. What a competitive group of 14 milers we have here, with one also eligible, of course. It's a very wide open race. Morning Line does reflect that. Your Morning Line favorite is coming off his first ever North American Grade 1 win, so kind of shows you what we're looking at here. It could be anybody's race. Let's waste no more time talking about it. And we'll begin with the one, of course, Circus Maximus. Very maligned horse, in my opinion. Obviously began the year very impressively, took out the Queen Anne at Royal Ascot on seasonal reappearance, but then has fallen kind of on hard times, 4 losses in a row, and they've progressively gotten worse with, visual appearance. But at the same time, you go to his races in France, at Deauville and at Longchamp, in the Marat and in the Prix de Milan. He ran good, but he was beaten by Palace Pier, Persian King, Alpine Star, and Pinatubo. If any of those 4 horses were in this year's mile, they would be near even money. That's how highly regarded they are. Last time out in the QE2, at Royal Ascot, he was running over soft ground that he just did not get along with. It was quite obvious. Beaten by some good horses, no doubt, but the ground more than anything probably did him in. Now he's going to get back to firm ground, which we saw last year in the Breeders' Cup Mile. He does have a good affinity for. Ran a really good 4th here with some traffic trouble. Did just miss 3rd behind without Pearl as well in that race. So coming to America is certainly going to benefit him. I do believe he has a good chance as an outsider to make some noise in this race. I ultimately didn't go with him on top, but I could see why someone would, because there is some good form if you read between the lines on that horse. The 2 is Kamiko. Kamiko is the lowest price on the Morning Line in terms of the European representation. Kamiko, obviously the 2000 Guinness winner earlier in the year. Only 1 win since. That was last time out when he took out the Group 2 Joel Stakes at Newmarket. Beat a pretty good field in there. Ben Battle, of course, is a name many probably know out there from his dirt tries in big races. So beat a pretty good group. Before that was, there were 2 races he shouldn't have been in. He shouldn't have been in the Derby. He shouldn't have been in the Juddmonte International. He does not want to go a mile and a quarter and a mile and a half. So 100% races you can look past. The Sussex was a bit concerning, 3 back in July at Goodwood, but at the same time, he did not get the best trip. There was a lot of criticism of Oisin Murphy for the ride he gave. I wouldn't say I disagree entirely, but there are certain things I didn't like about it, and there are certain things I think, well, at the end of the day, he wasn't going to win that race. At the same time, he was also beaten by Circus Maximus and Siskin. That's when really I can't make an opinion. That's when people have to form their own opinion on. Because really people are looking at Sussex 2 different ways, and I'm not really strong whether he could have won that race or not, but I didn't think it was a bad run. Last time out, good race. He's obviously done his best work at the mile, certainly not without a chance in this spot. It just all depended on can he work out a good trip from the 2-hole. The 3 is Lope Fernandez, 1 of 2 in here for Aidan O'Brien. This is the second one actually that we'll talk about, and of course 4 Europeans actually drew inside. This is the 3. Lope Fernandez has not won since last August when he won a Group 3 at the Cura as a 2-year-old, but he's had a pretty good year. You have to read between. This is another one you kind of have to read between the lines on. He's been sprinting the majority of the year, at least 3 of his races, and they've been his 3 worst races. The last 2, he's been 7th both efforts, finished close up, beating only 3 and 4 1/4 lengths, respectively, against older horses that are very talented, but he was sprinting there, and then in the Commonwealth Cup at Royal Ascot was also 6 furlongs. Didn't run great there. Then you look at his races at 6.5, 7, and a mile. 3rd, 2nd, especially those 2 Group 1s in France over the summer. Lost to Space Loose, who's very quick, and Hello Yumzane, who's a Group 1 winner, and then Pinatubo in the Prix Jean Prat. So 2 really good runs behind really good horses. That is a 30-1 is hopefully not going to be the actual, if that is his actual price, that is an absolute steal. He could 100% be running a bit late here because you have to, like I said, you have to read between the lines. But when you realize he's probably best going 7 furlongs to a mile, he can do something here, at least maybe hit the board if you're lucky enough. The 4 is Siskin. This is your Irish 2000 Guinness winner. Was also a very talented 3-year-old. He started his career off 5 for 5 actually. So a very, very good racehorse. But he's dropped his last 2 efforts, the Sussex at Goodwood and the Prix de Milan at Longchamp behind Circus Maximus in both efforts. And really, he didn't have that many excuses. He just didn't have enough at the end of the day in both races. He was beaten by really good horses. Obviously Circus Maximus, like I mentioned, on top, and then Persian King and Pinatubo and Mohother, if without injury, would have been the favorite in this race, with how good he'd been early on in 2020. So, point being, Siskin's been losing to good horses, but those good horses also return this time round. And I do wonder, and I don't know how he's going to handle coming from off the pace. I don't think he would be here if they didn't think he had a chance, but it is a little interesting now. He is 15-1 in the morning line, and if he stays around 15-1, just like with Lope Fernandez, okay, I'm going to say it now. The morning line in this race is truly the worst morning line I've ever seen in my life. Siskin should not be 15-1. Lope Fernandez should not be 30-1. Kamiko should not be the lowest priced European, at least by the margin he is. None of the Chad Browns should be the prices they're at. They're all huge overlays at this point. Ivor should not be your morning line favorite at 4-1. Halliday at 12-1 is an absolute steal. And then, of course, like I mentioned, the Europeans, their lines are all over the place. Safe Voyage at 15, One Master at 12. Absolutely ridiculous. And if these are the prices you're honestly going to get when post time comes, we are all very lucky people because there's some great value to be found based on what the line's looking at, right? Like on the morning line, however, come post time, I think it'll actually be a bit more true to what I imagine a lot of people are thinking. Siskin at 15-1, should he be anywhere near there? Like with Lope Fernandez, there's some excellent value to be found. They've definitely put a few dollars on him, at least to place or show, because at that value, it's tremendous. The 5 is Digital Age. This is the first of a couple Chad Brown horses we'll talk about. Obviously, Chad Brown took this race last year with Uni, the defending champion, does return this time around. But Digital Age, this is an interesting one because Chad Brown has seemingly gone out of his way to not run him a mile throughout his career. He was 2 for 2 to begin his career, but then he's progressively stepped him up and never dropped him back down. Picked up his first Grade 1 win last time out at Churchill Downs when he won the Old Forester Turf Classic. Very nice win, but I have some issues with it. I really do. He closed very well. It was very impressive. I do think he wants more than a mile, and because of that, that's my first knock against him. That Turf Classic field was not overly strong. The form has not held up from that race. So other than factor this, the runner-up who we'll talk about later, there are some things about it I don't like in behind that group. And at the end of the day, I do think I've seen a couple times this year going shorter. I haven't loved him. He's been beaten by lesser horses a couple times in his career, once this year. And getting back to the mile, that's kind of the biggest thing. I don't think he's going to be able to close well like he is a closer, and I don't think he's going to be able to do that effectively against this group going the flat mile. The 6 is Safe Voyage. Safe Voyage is a European who's not getting a lot of respect right now, at least from the public that I've seen, but he's 3 for 6 this year, and he's only been off the board once, and it was a 4th place finish behind a very talented sprinter. He's ran some exceptional races with wins. Go to his win in the city of York, Group 2 at York in August 3-back. That was a dominating win, going 7 furlongs. Won the Boomerang Mile, a very tough, salty Group 2 at Leopardstown. 2 starts back. Last time it was 3rd, beaten just a neck, but closing super well behind One Master in the 4A at Longchamp on Arc Day. So he has put together a very solid year. I think he has a gigantic chance. He has some very good early speed. He's tactical. He can probably stalk in this spot, set a really good 3rd or 4th. I think he's going to be in contention coming to the wire because he's put together a very strong year, and his best races have generally come going the mile. Even go back to 2019, he was 3rd in the QE2 on Champions Day at Royal Ascot in a pretty tough field. So he's run some really good races. Really not a bad race in his last 6 starts to be found against, and his losses have only come to really good horses. So I think the mile's going to suit him great. Think he's going to sit a great trip. Think he has a huge chance. The 7 is Casa Creed. Hasn't won since last August when he won the Grade 2 Hall of Fame Stakes at Saratoga. 0 for 4 this year. Best finishes have been a 3rds. But he always ran 2 really good races in Grade 1 company in the 4-star Dave at Saratoga and the Shadwell Turf Mile last time out. Problem is he's been well beaten without any excuses behind Halliday Ivor, and Raging Bull, as well as factor this in the Wise Dan 3-back at Churchill Downs. So that's very concerning. He's just, simply put, been beat by this level and weaker multiple times in his career, throughout his career, really, and especially this year. He's ran some pretty good races, but based on setup and what he's kind of shown in his last few starts, I just don't see it happening. He's going to really need to improve leaps and bounds in every way, shape, and form for him to be contentious. And I feel like this is one you can just kind of easily toss as we go into this race. A very tough group. You got to get rid of some, and there's just no sense to really be found with Casa Creed against this salty bunch. Yetis March to the Arch. This is another one I'm not too high on, in all honesty. Really good second in the Woodbine Mile behind Starship Jubilee. No shame in losing to that very talented mare, but and a 2-back actually won a grade 2 out at Woodbine, going a mile over an okay field. They're good for Canadian standards, Woodbine standards, but if they came to America, they wouldn't have much of a say. Go to his races earlier in the year, the Wise Dan and the Shoemaker Mile, even the Appleton at Gulfstream. Kind of a better indication of what his actual ability is. Was well beaten by Factor This in the Wise Dan. Didn't show much when last in the Shoemaker Mile. He didn't have a great trip there. Ran really well in the Appleton against 2 horses that would have been leading contenders in the mile should they have appeared here without some problems along the road to this race here in 2020. But he still lost that race. So he just hasn't been able to put it together. He beat a weaker group 2-back, and that might be a little enticing to some people, but on true form, looking at the quality of the races, when he's faced this quality, he's been beaten every time, and I just don't see the step up happening here. Another one I'm looking against. The 9 is 1 Master, very talented 6-year-old mare from Europe for William Haggis. Was actually a very good, I believe 4th or 5th in the mile in 2018. Was a very strong run, very good on a very poor part of the track at Churchill Downs. Could have won that race. It was a wild finish. But she's strung together 2 really good years in 2019. Didn't chip over in 2019 to Santa Anita, but is here for 2020 for another crack at the mile. 2 wins in 7 starts, but the wins have been very nice. Last time out was 3rd, beaten a half length in the British Champion Sprint, but she cut back to 6 furlongs. She's not a 6 furlong horse. She definitely prefers the 7 furlongs to a mile. Her only other win this year came in July against females in a Group 3 at Goodwood. That was a good run. But other than that, she has been beaten a handful of times by horses around this level. That win in the 4A was very nice. Beat Earthlight, one of the best French 3-year-olds this year, and Safe Voyage. But also earlier in the year, she lost to Wichita in the Group 2 Park at Doncaster. That was 3 starts ago. 4 starts ago was very well beaten, going 7 furlongs by Safe Voyage in the city of York. And then, of course, beaten by the Phillies another time in the Falmouth, going a mile 2. So while she's been very consistent, obviously, by everything I just said, she's also ran some very unenthusiastic races. I feel like she's a candidate to possibly run well underneath, especially knowing she does like running in America based off that one effort, and the mile is a good distance for her. However, what I will say, she is 0 for 6 going a mile with only 1 second and 1/3. She really is kind of that in between 6. She's a 7 furlong horse, not necessarily a sprinter, not necessarily a miler, and there aren't those 7 furlong opportunities here in the U.S. It's going to be nice to see her. I feel like she could be one you can use underneath, but at the end of the day, not one I'm going to be using, because that when you're 0 for 6 at the distance, that's just a massive turnoff, especially considering she's only hit the board 33% of the time. The 10 is Halliday for Todd Pletcher, the winner of the 4-star Dave. This horse, to me, has the best American form of anyone in this race. At 12-1, it's going to be an absolute gift should you get it. In the 4-star Dave, which he took wire to wire, has had a reasonable pace for his standards, going 47 flat for the half. That's the definition of average pretty much for a mile race, and he was able to take full advantage of that. But at the same time, he beat Casa Creed, Uni, and Raging Bull in the process, in a race that shapes up just like the one we're about to see on Saturday. And those are the majority of the American contenders in here, and 2 of the most highly regarded in Raging Bull and Uni, and he handled them very well. In addition to that, he won the Sunshine Forever, which was a minor stakes, a listed 6 at Gulfstream 3-back. Well, the runner-up in that race, Ophbophobia, is a Grade 1 winner this year. Social Paranoia came back and won a Grade 2 in his next start as well. So there was some impeccable form coming out of that race at Gulfstream. Bernard Baruch was a tough race. He didn't break super well, and then he was not asked to go to the lead. Some, like at Hop Brown, went to the lead took advantage of that. He went wire to wire. They know Halliday's best races have always come on the lead, and he's going to default to the lead in this race. He's 100% going to be there. I think he has a massive chance to take this group wire to wire. Luis Saez, best speed rider in the game, no hands. No hands can object to that one because it is fact. He can ride those front runners like no tomorrow. So it's going to be very exciting. And like I said, especially if he continues to hang around that 12-1. Have seen a couple people say the layoff is a bit of concern. This is a horse who's won off the layoff before in his career, dating back to when he broke his maiden. He was coming off a good 6-day, 10-month layoff there. The math, not trying to do that in my head. Point is, it was a very long layoff. It was very impressive. And Todd Pletcher, he's won 11 Breeders' Cup races in his career. 4 of them have been off 6-week plus layoffs. And the 2 that came at Keeneland in 2015, neither of those horses had raced since August. So he fits the bill. Pletcher knows what he's doing. It's going to be an exciting run for Halliday. The 11 is their morning line favorite, Ivor. Ivor is a very good horse. Loved his win in the Shadwell Turf Mile last time out. He's 2 for 4 since coming to the U.S. Was 3 for 3 down in Argentina with some absolutely dominant wins down there. But at the same time, the Shadwell Turf Mile field was kind of weak. If I'm generalizing, obviously a couple horses are in this race from that group, Raging Bull being the biggest one, and then Costa Creed as well. But at the same time, the Euro contingent's very tough. For Ivor, it was a nice win, but he was also coming off a third in the Tourist Mile, which was a weaker group. So he beat a tougher group next time out in the Shadwell Turf Mile. And taking back off the pace was very good for him. But he's going to have to close in this spot again into a pace that probably will be slower than the one from that Shadwell Turf Mile. And I don't trust the field he beat. I think there are horses with some better class and better experience, both the Euros and Halliday. So for that reason, I am against him. And especially, of course, if he's going to be 4-1. If he floats up to 8 or 9-1, yeah, you can definitely fire away on this guy, but not if he's going to be your post-time favorite. That's some ridiculous, that's a ridiculous overlay that I personally would not be willing to take, and I just don't see where the value would be in that. The 12 is your defending champion, Uni. Unlike last year, Uni has had a very inconsistent 2020. Last year, she came into the Breeders' Cup off of 1 loss, which was a race where she was completely compromised, but she prepped beautifully, and then of course won the Breeders' Cup Mile. This year it's been a lot different. When she came back in the Just a Game, was a very flat third behind Newspaper of Record, with no shame in losing to Newspaper of Record or Beau Recall, who's actually second in that spot. Both of them very talented, female racehorses, but it was still weird to see her lose. And then the 4-star day was just a horrible race. She had chances to come. She just did not. It was a very poor effort. But she bounced back really nice in the First Lady. Actually turned the tables on both Beau Recall and Newspaper of Record, who were second and third. That was a great group in the First Lady that she beat. But at the same time, Beau Recall and Newspaper of Record both passed on this race because they knew they weren't, good enough to contend. So for me, I do kind of question the quality as she steps up to this group. I feel like this year's Breeders' Cup Mile is much tougher than the one she faced last year, and she's in much less quality form. Still in pretty good form. She's coming off a Grade 1 win, but at the same time, she's not nearly as dominant. I'm not even a big speed figures guy, but it doesn't take a genius to look at them to see that she ran 2 triple-digit numbers on the Vyers before, her big run in the mile, which was a career high. This year, it was a 93, a 90, a 98, a 93, and a 99. So while she did improve from the 4-star Dave, that's still 11 points lower than her run last year in the 4-star Dave, and 6 points lower than her run in the First Lady last year. So 100% regression we've seen from her. For that reason, I am against her. Plus, I don't think she's going to be able to close into what's going to be a very dawdling pace. The 13, Factor This has been the winning machine in 2025, wins in 7 starts, a second and a third. Had a huge, winters in spring and summer with 3 straight graded stakes wins. Last time out, won the dinner party up at Pimlico on Preakness Day, and then 2 starts back was second in the Old Forester Turf Classic. Big question with this horse is the mile. He's 0 for 6 going a mile. Now he's been second 3 times and a third once. So that's pretty good, but that was against much weaker company. You have to remember this horse just became a graded stakes quality horse this year. So there's 2 factors in reality to this. The fact that he doesn't like that the mile is not his optimum distance. He wants a little bit longer. And in all his graded stakes wins, well, it's been great. It's been super fun to watch. He's been beating far inferior company to what he's facing this time around. The best race he ever, ran in terms of quality of competition was the Old Forester Turf Classic, and he was beat by Digital Age. And Digital Age himself is not exactly one of the better horses on the grass in the country this year. So that was concerning to me. I do like that he's going to be on the lead. That's going to be really nice to him. He's going to be able to sit a very good trip. But the problem is, at the end of the day, I just don't think he has the overall quality to win this race. And finally, the 14, Raging Bull. Raging Bull will be making his Breeders' Cup debut, but he's been a graded stakes horse his entire life. 1 for 4 this year, won the Shoemaker Mile to kick off his campaign in May. People kind of assumed from that point on he was going to lead this mile division. Not so much. Was third beaten the neck in the Maker's Mark Mile at Keeneland. Then fifth in the 4-Star Dave, second last time out in the Shadwell Turf Mile behind Ivor. And the problem is he just gets wound up too late. He realistically probably does want further than a mile. He's 3 for 10 at the mile. He's been on the board in eight out of those starts. But like I said, he comes motoring late, but it's always too late. And I feel like no matter what happens in this race, that'll probably be the case once more. I don't understand how you could like this horse and not like Ivor a little bit better, because on form, they're really kind of the same horse in terms of consistency. And based off that last race, Ivor has run pretty well. Raging Bull has ran good at Keeneland, 3 for 4 in the money at Keeneland in his career with a win as well, coming a couple of years ago. So he's a very good horse, but ultimately I don't think he gets the job done. Going into the pace scenario now, Halliday is going to be on top. Factor this is going to be pressing him. They're going to be very comfortable leaders here. Your stalkers probably Safe Voyage and Casa Creed. Then you go back to the likes of Kamiko's probably going to be 5th or 6th early on, as well as One Master with him as well. Then the likes of Ivor is going to definitely be your mid-pack with Circus Maximus. Digital Agent Siskin fit that mold very well. And then your 3, closing types, Lope Fernandez, March to the Arch, Uni, of course, and Raging Bull as well. I ultimately went with Halliday, and I don't think it's a surprise why. I think that lone speed kills. I think he's been the most dominant American turf horse all year. People are just not yet to realize it, but he's beaten everybody he needs to in this division to this point, and I think that he just has to overcome the Europeans this time, and I think he will with that pace scenario. Safe Voyage for second. Got to throw him in. I've loved his consistency this year. I think he's going to sit a really good stalking trip. He just won't be able to catch the leader, Halliday. And for third, I will go Ivor. No, he's the morning line favorite, but loved his race last time at Keeneland. And realistically, I think he makes the most sense of the remaining options that I have. So ultimately, I went with the 10, 6, 11 route here in the Breeders' Cup Mile. A million ways you can go. Very deep race, very exciting race. Everybody enjoy. Good luck if you're betting it, and we'll see you next time here on the Racing Rundown.
There to the inside. Newspaper of Record went wide off the far turn. Uni out in the center of the course now shifts lanes back down toward the inside to chase Newspaper of Record, who comes away with the lead. Uni is second. Beau Recall goes to third, still 5 lengths away. Newspaper of Record and Uni stride for stride in the final furlong of the First Lady. Late run from Beau Recall. Uni with a